regarding the fish tank thing. So if you're not aware, Sam Hyde has this reality show where a bunch of fish contestants are in a house. All of the windows and doors, everything, you cannot see out. The rules are stay inside, no weed, and no phones. And so it's 6 weeks of these 8 people all put together. And the setup, it's on fishtank.live, is you get to click and switch between 10 different cameras. So you can go to bedroom 1 and see what people are doing there. You can go to bedroom 3, living room, kitchen, all that kind of shit. And it is a masterclass example of like why reality shows always hire actors and are always scripted. Because he genuinely picked like 8 of the most genuinely strange autistic people he could find and put them in a house. And the challenges are often brutal and clearly made up in the moment.
Counting grains of rice. He comes in, throws rice all over the room, and he's like, count the rice.
Yeah, he came in and like did like the rice thing. He'll do stuff just to upset them, and then he'll do things to try and create problems. Or he'll be like, he'll barge in his enormous self wearing like a seersucker suit, like just like dominating people physically in an uncomfortable way, and be like, tonight's challenge is the drunk dickhead off. Whoever is the meanest, most ruthless person to your fellow contestants wins a fish buck. A fish buck is a piece of paper he prints out with a fish on it that is purportedly redeemable for $500 each at the end of the show. And as he introduced those, he was like, you guys are going to want to take care of these fish bucks. These are definitely worth $500 each. Listen to me, folks. If I'm lying, sue me. And then so he's been giving out fish bucks to people. And like people get kicked out of the house, but no one I don't think has actually really gotten kicked out. It's just people are so psychologically tortured by text to speech from Sam Hyde's audience.
But there is someone.
John
got
left.
kicked out.
Oh yeah, Simmons got kicked out
Simmons.
because they discovered one of the contestants, this Asian guy, had written a book. My understanding was about his years as a camp counselor, but what he wrote the book about was how to hook up with the people at camp. And
the kids at camp
apparently,
it was too weird. It was bit. It was weird enough that the excerpts from the book caused people to be uncomfortable.
What was the title? The most dangerous game? Like,
dangerous game? Dude, it was so like apparently it was so reprehensible that like Sam went into the house and was like, "You have 3 minutes to get your You have 3 minutes to get your stuff."
Jason Goldstriker went in on his day off.
Oh, not his day off.
And he was like, fuck you, get out of here.
Norm, he was just in there with a weed eater attacking the kitchen, and you're telling me he's got to go right back in on his day off?
He was just in there attacking the kitchen with a weed eater. You saw that? A lot of it's 24-hour live stream, and so like usually just every night, like after this, I'll pop in see what they're doing. It's either like sitting around doing nothing boring, or it is like the most beyond interesting, entertaining, surreal thing ever. What happened recently, just I guess yesterday, is Frank Hassel. This ties in with Boogie. Everything's getting connected. Frank Hassel is the gentleman who said to Boogie, "I'm going to come in your house and fuck you in the ass." That's Hassel doctrine, and forced, obviously forced Boogie to do that warning shot. Yeah. There was a goal that as soon as they hit their like subscriber limit or whatever, Frank Hassel would be unleashed on the contestants. And so they let Frank Hassel into the house last night, and he like immediately proceeds to like start tearing people's stuff up, breaking things, like being very uncomfortable around people. And that was all expected. This was all 100% expected.
Harley, that bag's so loud.
Harley, stop fucking playing with the bag.
I want to note that wasn't me.
I was like, all right, he's done. And then he's like, let me close it. I don't want these to get stale.
If you know, yesterday they brought Frank Hassel into the mix. And if you're familiar with another character kind of in the iDubbbz universe, his name is Airsoft Fatty. So Airsoft Fatty was this big, morbidly obese guy, this guy. There's an iDubbbz documentary about him with like 30 million views, hugely popular. It's called Full Force, and it was tracking this big fat guy's like airsoft journey and like his interesting life in Battle Creek, Michigan. And this big fat guy, who's arguably the most likable like earnest, genuine seeming guy in the world, Airsoft fatty. His name's Chris. At one point last night, like he went up to a room by himself and like started crying. And this guy's like morbidly obese. Like he lost his mother, doesn't have a father in the picture, like in his mid-20s. Like he's had a rough go of it by anyone's estimation. And apparently a lot of people on Reddit and whatnot harass him and make his life very difficult. And he was like, he like marched himself up to like bedroom 4 by himself and like started crying and saying like, pull it together. I can't take this anymore. It was very sad. And Frank fucking Hassel walks in and sees this guy like crying and starts to be like,
can I pause?
You know what? I'll get, yeah, go ahead.
Help me understand. Frank Hassel is
thank you.
The character that Sam Hyde plays. I'm right?
No. Frank Hassel, the guy on the left there is Frank Hassel. He makes content where he hassles people. He messes with them in public.
He's the guy that messed with Boogie.
Correct. Yes, he's the guy that messed with Boogie. And this gentleman here, Chris, Airsoft fatty, he was in this room crying, and Frank Hassel came in and saw him crying and started going like, kind of broke his character and was like, oh, you need anything, man? You let me know what's up. And he started to leave, and Chris started to like open up and like cried a little more. Like, this is I'm having such a hard time. Frank Hassel like broke character entirely, went over there, like patted him on the back, comforted this guy. The guy's saying, I feel like I'm worthless and everyone hates me and says I'm useless. And he's like, no, you're not, man. Like, stop saying that about yourself. It was genuinely fucking endearing watching in real time as like this dude who has a really tough life is actively comforted in a way that's genuine and human by someone whose entire job was to come in and fuck with them. Like the realness overtook the act. He also pretended to die of a heart attack mid stand-up show, which was actually funny.
Are we completely sure that sort of, consolation and friendship that he was showing there wasn't just the first stages of sissy hypno?
Maybe I'm a fool and I fell for it, but it was
Airsoft fatty was manipulating him. He is. He needs money. It was a game. It was a move.
It was a tricky
thing. Listen, bro. I know fucking money
fatty.
moves. I know manipulative money moves when I see them. My people fucking they wrote the book, bro. It's called the Talmud. No, I'm joking. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I do think it was interesting and it was great, but I see Airsoft fatty. I'm like, I don't know, bro. I see a performer. Crazy to say, right? I know it is crazy to say, but I always default to I'm like, but at the end of the day, that's a YouTuber. And I don't know if I could fully trust a YouTuber, really. I met Airsoft fatty once, and he was a nice guy. He was cool. But something about these YouTubers, bro, they're fucking weird me out.
I only care about the parts. I only care about the parts where he attacks the kitchen with a weed eater. Mostly, I like that.
I actually messaged him like, bro, beating the shit out of the kitchen with boxing gloves was way funnier than it should have been.
Because he punched the shit out of that cabinet and he goes, oh, whoa, fuck, sorry. Like apologizing to the people around as though he didn't just intentionally break it. I thought he was going to destroy that fridge.
What is that house? What is like? All right, so I've got some basic questions. Do you who owns that? Is that a house like in the country somewhere?
Samuel Hyde owns that house.
Yeah, whoever owns that house made a huge mistake. Like there's an enormous amount of damage.
But
all over.
Like, does he own it? Is he renting it, or is this an Airbnb? It's
probably rented.
If it were rented,
I feel like he came in and bought that shit outright.
Does anyone have a vibe for how much money he's making off this fish tank thing?
The hosting's 10 a day, right? Jesus.
I don't know. I don't know if it's bringing in crazy bank.
Okay.
But it's definitely brought in enough attention to do it again.
Yeah.
It's I think it's very successful. You go in there at any time and you just see people spending money.
Yeah. And I know the expenses. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was like, he's just a very funny person.
Yeah.
He's very funny. And but I'm like, listen, I see shit like that and I find him so funny. And I know the appeal of some of the other things that he does and says. And And I'm just like, I can't help but be like, ooh, this makes me, I don't know.
I have
like,
too much empathy to enjoy his humor. Like I always put myself.
Yes, some of the things. I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. It's the things that I too have too much empathy, where I'm like, ooh, I don't know. But then
he asked a guy to hold pads for him, right? And Sam Hyde had 150 pounds on this person who's holding his pads, and he doesn't seem to be holding anything back. So even though he's holding the pads, like they're hitting him in the face, he's like getting crunched. He is beating up a person under the guise of hitting the pads. And
we just found the line, Woody, you and I know our exact line. I found that thing hilarious.
Really?
I found him holding the bag. Very funny. That guy is, he works out. He's a fighter. He's an alpha. If you're like, I'm a fucking top G, I love Andrew Tate. If you're that kind of guy, then it's okay for you to hold the bag and get kicked. You're a top G. You love Andrew Tate. So you can get kicked.
Do you know this lore, Kyle? So this gentleman that was holding the pads for Sam Hyde has a pretty severe speech impediment, and he's Andrew Tate's top J.
Andrew Tate and Twisted Tate, Cobra Tate. I love the Tate brothers. Could you tweet this out? Yeah. And you know what? Nothing wrong with this guy. If I were in the house, I would fully converse with this person, interact with him. If I were another fish, I would be like, bro, can we do some fucking push-ups, please? What are you doing? Like, you're pretty focused on this shit.
Yeah.
So that I do think if you're that type of person, yeah, you can get fucking kicked by Jason Goldstriker.
On John's, John is the name of the guy with the speech impediment, and like every character, every fish has their own little like contestant page that clearly Sam wrote. And like before I had heard this guy talk, it was like, John's a jack of all trades. He may have a speech impediment, but it's often mistaken for a European accent. And like I was like, what? And then I like started listening to him talk, and I was like, oh god, no, it's never mistaken for a European accent.
So we switched topics. I didn't know his backstory. All I saw was the clip of him holding pads, and he looked like a guy getting bullied. He was a guy getting bullied.
He was,
and I put myself in his
but some
position,
people should.
And I think like, what would I do? It's not like I could drop the fucking pads and put what the fuck is it? Is Sam in his place? Like,
no, you're on the show. Also, you're trying to get money. He has your phone.
Yes, your phone.
It is wild. It's wild. This is the only time where by the way, I was like, oh, this show's crazy. I was like on the third day, and I was like, this is the one time where Sam could actually get in trouble for something.
Yeah, he's
like,
liable.
This is the one time where I'm like, this is like producer nightmare city.
Because
so much of
not only is he doing silly things, but he's got those silly people there who dollars to donuts. He's got people there who have attempted herself before in the house with him under extreme stress with all sorts of crazy shit around and cameras filming all of it. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be responsible for any of that. No, I don't know how you get insurance for that. You can't.
What is it? 6 weeks for 10 grand?
It's 6 weeks. Now it's 30 grand. He'll randomly go in and increase the amount of money. I think it's like 30 now, right?
Sam is a very generous person, regardless of everything. At the end of the day, when someone has been through it and they do it, I don't doubt that he will be very generous. And I don't think he's going to swerve on them or anything.
Mm-hmm. What about the $500?
I think he's going to pay the money for that. For
sure.
Okay. Yeah, I really do. I can't imagine him not doing that. He needs money to do his vision, and he has extravagant visions. I'm only talking to the person that's met him before, but what I gather is he needs money to do his extravagant visions, but money's not the main motivator for why he does things. So I don't think he would hold out money or anything like that. And even some of the crazy stuff he said, like you said, Woody, like me too. I feel like I have too much empathy. I get worried. Maybe my body's shifting. Like I should be a dad now. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about this one. It could make me cry. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, like some of those kids are like, you could be their dad almost, right? You're starting to look at it like that. It's like, he's like, what is he, like 19 in there?
I could be, but I am also legally allowed to have sex with them.
True.
I'm old enough to be their dad, and that's just my age now.
I don't know if other people look at this venture this way. I'm impressed by the business aspect of it. Like This is a pretty big investment that he's starting off. I've never started a business where the risk was Woodycraft. Do you guys know how much that cost to get going? $700. $700. I don't know how much I made on that. It was 7 digits though. And but that thing started for $700. This thing, he's spending 10 grand a day, but he made more than that rolling in. Go ahead.
We're a YouTuber again. He's not just a regular YouTuber, but once again, I'm like, could be a game. Could be a game. Listen, his audience, they love to pay money to him. They pay so much on the text to speech.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes way too much sense. I'm not saying he's doing this. I'm not saying that. But it makes way too much sense to consider being like, these are the costs. Is it really the cost? Or are you trying to let people know, like, if this shit's not worth it, it's not happening anymore? And you don't really get to speak English like that. You don't get to be like, yo, if this shit isn't worth it, it's not going to keep happening. But if you're like 10K a day is where we're at, then people know there's like a milestone to hit because you want it to keep happening, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, the text to speech is, for people who don't know, like, it's not like $5 text to speech. It's like a couple $100. And it's
Zach
like
said 150 and double at night.
Oh, 150 double at night. And also, like, there are sound effects you can play that are boomingly loud at people. And I think those are even more expensive than text to speech. And for like, the clips are maybe 30 seconds long. And for 30 straight minutes the other night, I watched the new Asian guy totally not be able to sleep because they played the shooting one, the mariachi band, the hysterical breakup, like all of these and like the clips, Woody, it's not like ding, like, or like something happy. There's one called like hysterical breakup, and it's like 2 minutes of like shrill screaming. There's one called mariachi band that is like only gets played at night, and it's so hilariously booming loud that like the second you play it. There's one that's just called like mayhem or something, and it's people screaming and gunshots going off. That's like, help, and bang, bang, bang. There's
all right. Now I think this is funny. This hasn't crossed my empathy line yet, but it's flirting with it. It's like,
it is flirting with it, and he's good at that. Is flirting with that line where I'm like, oh, this is bad. I shouldn't laugh, but I
yeah. It's like, hey, for how much is to play one of these things? Like $30, maybe $15.
No, like $150.
I don't know if it's secret or not. I don't know if it's secret or not, but I spoke to him briefly. I spoke to Julian, and they were like, we want to get like an epic meal in the fish tank if we could do that. And I was like, fuck, dude, I've been watching. I have all these trips planned. It was last minute. I was like,
wait, that's why?
I don't know if
you would subject yourself. Oh, you would just visit. You wouldn't be a contestant.
I would go be epic meal time, like they're there one day and I come in, I'm like, we're making, I don't know what we would have done, but like, we're making a fucking epic meal now, fish. Let's start fucking
I thought you wanted
burning pizza.
Like, hey, Harley, if you work for me for 6 weeks, you may or may not get 10 grand. If you do like,
I won't lie. Listen, ever since I did boxing, nothing concerns me now. Like I boxed John Hennigan, like one of the most athletic WWE superstars ever, and he was on the most juice of life. So much juice, like it's like it was the ultimate. And now I'm like, I said to my mom, I'm like, should I be a cop? My mom was like, why? I'm like, I don't know. I'm fucking good.
Do it.
Well, mine is all times I spoke about being on mushrooms or drugs on these podcasts. I was like, but I could do it. I was like, or I'll be a fucking postman. I could do whatever. Should I be a fish in season 2? Yeah, I'll go fucking sit in the house. I'll hold the bag for Jason Goldstriker while he kicks me in the face. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters now. I'm doing all side quests, all extra missions. It's all the nonsense part. I'm doing the cleenup now.
Bravery now. That's what happened.